it's a spiritual battle out here, folks. So stay protected, stay aligned. So one of the things I wanted to just dive into, for a couple of years now, I've felt like there's so much resistance in wanting to use my voice and podcast. Ever since I left working in Hollywood and being on the Impulsive show, I don't know what it is. I've just felt like I've wanted to have a podcast, and then at the same time I'm like, I don't know, I don't feel like I really have anything to talk about. And the last couple of years I've just been like nose down focused on humanitarian work, like, as you know, just like being overseas like the majority of my life the last few years. But now ever since this Charlie Kirk situation, like the moment I saw what happened after you told me that Charlie was shot, the moment I saw that, I felt called to start like using my voice. It was there's no words that I can use other than it just like really pierced my soul, like witnessing that and then seeing the reaction, seeing how there's people celebrating it, seeing how, you know, also the good, there's so much good that's coming from this. So I wanted to just dive right in right there and just talk about this Charlie Kirk situation and what that means for our country, for the world. I think this is a very important thing, and you know, I want to honor his legacy in a way, and starting our own podcast, using our voice and encouraging other people to do the same, because that's really what he was about. You know, we could disagree on, you know, I know you and I both disagreed on a lot of things he had to say, but that's irrelevant to what happened, what it really was. So yeah, I guess let's dive in there. Like, what was your reaction when you first saw what happened?
I was in shock for a couple days. I remember it clearly. We were on a FaceTime. I was at home with Kalani and you were in Ukraine. And I see on Instagram that Charlie was shot in Utah. And I told you right away. And I was like, oh my God, no, this can't be happening. And you went to it immediately. And I think you saw the clip and you were like, don't go on social media again. Don't watch that. And then about 40 minutes later, I see the next post that he's dead. And at that moment, I was just devastated. It affected me big time, and I had to shut down my social media for a few days because unfortunately I saw the video and it traumatized me, and it took me a few days to kind of realize what happened. And I remember that night was a very dark, very dark, very
dark night of the soul.
Definitely. Even Kalani, she's a very good sleeper, and that night
Yeah, Kalani, you're using your voice too.
What's going on?
What's up, baby girl? Yeah, we got Kalani here. This is an experiment. We're gonna see how this goes.
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
I was in Ukraine. I was in Sumy, which is like the front lines of Ukraine. It's a small city. It's actually very close to Russia. And strangely enough, the war isn't super active there. It's actually way more active in the east, which I've spent a lot of time in, you know, the Donbass region, where the war is very violent and it's very active. But, you know, what's happening in Ukraine right now is there's these drones that Russia sends in. I mean, they'll send like 700-800 of them per night. They're originally Iranian made. They're called Shahed drones. They're huge. I mean, they're as tall from floor to ceiling here, and as wide, probably as wide as this, backdrop, the moss wall here, maybe even wider, maybe just a little bit more. They're massive, and they have like a huge warhead on the top of them. So when they hit and impact, it's a massive explosion. So you told me about the Charlie, that Charlie was shot. I got on my phone, I saw it, and then I couldn't go to sleep. Like it messed me up big time. And yeah, I just same as you, it was traumatic. And I was also thinking about all the people there, the young people there that saw that, and there were so many things that I was trying, that my mind was just racing. And so I was just praying to Jesus. I was praying to Mother Mary, trying to get some sleep, trying to calm down, and nothing was well, I was starting to kind of calm down a little bit. It was like 1:30 a.m. in Ukraine time. And then right as I'm like just trying to shut my brain off, the air raid sirens go off, and there's a full-on drone attack on the city. And to the point where I have it on camera. I had to like get up, leave my room, because I could hear the explosions from the drones hitting. And in the morning, I went down the street, and they were just like a couple blocks away. I didn't get to sleep until probably 3 a.m. And I just went to my knees and started praying to Jesus, and it was heart-wrenching. And then, as I saw, which I'm not surprised by, I saw the reaction of people celebrating it and justifying it, and, using some of his comments that people disagreed with, or maybe he said some things that were a little crazy, using those comments to justify his death. That was just insane to me, and I saw people that I follow, people that I'm friends with, or had friendships with, or people that I know very well, celebrating it. And I'm just like, how? Even if you disagree with someone, right? Even the person you disagree with the most, if I see them get executed like that in front of a crowd of people, I'm never going to celebrate that. My heart's going to hurt for that person. So I think for me, just seeing that people are capable of reacting like that is stunning. And it was a wake-up call for me to see the people that are like justifying it, or just taking to social media and using his death as a way to prop up a political agenda immediately after, not giving the space for people to really grieve what had happened. I think it really revealed, if this was like I'm curious to hear your perspective on this, but to me it seemed like this was a moment that really took the mask off of a lot of people, and we got to see, where are you really at spiritually? And I think that's one thing I want to talk about, is like it to me, it revealed that we are in, and I've known this for a while, being in the front lines in Ukraine and in Gaza. It's a spiritual battle all over the world. Mm-hmm. But there was just something about this that felt like it took it to the next level.
No, it's very sad. And to me, it's shocking to see people celebrating the death of someone and celebrating the murder of someone, when they're very aware that there is a wife that's mourning his death. There are children that just lost their dad. How can you celebrate that? How can you be happy about that? It's just, to me, I can't comprehend.
This is why, I always lean on my faith, and I always come back to my faith. And it's something that I have been more reserved about for a while. I grew up a Christian. I would say I got away from the Christian faith for a while and went down more of a New Age spirituality route. But then I ultimately hit a point where I recognized that the appearance of the New Age spirituality was beautiful, is this idea of unity. We're all one, it's all love, and it's all light. But then I always started to see behind the curtains in these spiritual communities, and I saw how people really acted, and I saw that it isn't what it appears to be. And, especially through my humanitarian work in Ukraine, I really started to come back to my faith. I started to deepen my prayer, especially going in, when I was going into these places where I had to accept the reality that I could die at any moment. You have to, you're going into a war zone. Like, you're going to be grappling with that reality. Like, is this worth it? Is it, should I be risking my life? Ultimately, that strengthens your spirit. If you're, you rise up into it, right? And And that's something I chose to do, but obviously through the power of prayer, through the power of Christ, to be able to handle being in a war zone and going through into some of these extremely dangerous places and coming out on the other side, alive, and just seeing the miracles real time, of praying and having that protection. So, I started to come back to my faith very heavily, really starting around COVID. COVID was a big wake up where I got to see like a lot of people I thought were friends. I was just speaking out in sharing my opinions about what I thought about, like government mandates, government control, all the vaccines, all that kind of stuff. And I got to see people's real colors there. So that helped me move towards my faith a little bit more. But then, Ukraine and humanitarian work ultimately was the next level. But I share all that because I think the closer you get with your faith, the closer you really understand that this material world isn't it. It's not everything. We're here, we're in it, but we can't take any of it with us when we pass, right? Once you really grapple with the idea of death and you overcome your fear of death and you recognize that, it requires faith. This is where your faith really gets put to the test. Do you believe that there's more to life after death, right? Or is death the end, right? Is there meaning? Is there purpose in this world, or is there no meaning? And from what I see, whether it's New Age spirituality, whether it's just, the world as it is, there's a battle between is there life after death? Are we just physical human beings, or are we also spiritual beings? And yeah, through all my different experiences, right? Whether it's my faith journey, my experiences with plant medicines, my experience in New Age spiritual communities, my experience with humanitarian work, I've come to the realization that I am 100% convinced that there is life beyond death. And I see that there is this battle, if you want to call it a battle for like the human soul, of, our belief in our faith ultimately shapes our actions. Mm-hmm. If we don't believe there's purpose, if we don't believe there's meaning, then there's no such thing as good or bad, right? So then everything just is. There's no consequence to our actions. And on the contrary side, there is meaning to life. Everything does have a meaning. Everything is profoundly meaningful. It's just how do we, perceive that, because that's ultimately shaping our actions. So to me, that's like the long-winded way of saying, of just kind of, explaining how I view this spiritual battle. It's a battle between people that really believe in something greater than the self, and then people that believe they are God, mm-hmm. right? The New Age spirituality likes to prop people up as we are God. Mm-hmm. Rather than my belief, how I see it is we have God within us, right? We're created in God's image, but we are not God, mm-hmm. right? It's like the analogy I love from, the Kabbalion, it's, Shakespeare, right? There's this character in one of Shakespeare's play called Macabre, and it would be like him in the middle of the play stopping and saying, "I am Shakespeare." Everybody would be like, "No, you're not." Like, what do you mean? You're not Shakespeare, right? You're a part of Shakespeare's creation. And so I think that's to me what it is. It's about recognizing who we are and where we are in the cosmic order. And when we recognize that we are not God, we are created in God's image, and we are called to be God-like, that ultimately is, to me, it leads to a more humble life of service, which I believe is what Christ was trying to help guide us to, is a life loving our neighbor and loving God. And I see that, whatever it is, and I'd love to dive into this, our culture has kind of bred this. We've created a culture in which God is really pushed out of our schools. God is pushed out of our day-to-day life. And I see when there is an absence of God, it's a universal principle. The universe abhors a vacuum. Something fills of, the space of nothing. And that's what I see in our culture. I see there's a lot of people that lack God in their life. And I think that ultimately is replaced by something. You have to worship something. So if you're not, worshiping God and praising God through your actions, then what are you worshiping? Maybe it's money. Maybe it's fame. Maybe it's sex. Maybe it's,
The earthly pleasures,
Yeah.
the earthly gods.
the earthly pleasures, exactly. And so that's what I see. I see, this Charlie Kirk situation was just like an amplification of that spiritual battle, where you got to see like, wow, there are a lot of people that really lack God. And I think, you and I have talked about this a lot. Like, we try not to be in a political party. We try to err towards where can we put our energy that's most effective. But at the same time, we live in a world of duality where there's political parties and all sorts of nuance, all sorts of interesting things. But I think that's a fascinating thing to see where, our political parties, our political leaders are at. We get to see where our friends are at, our families are at. And that's how I perceive this. It's just another moment, just like COVID was, to lift the veil and see where we're all really at. And it's difficult not to judge people, right? That's why I was sharing on my Instagram, like, I forgive the people that are reacting horribly to this situation because they're just spiritually sick. They're unwell. And I think, like, this memorial service, I'd love to get your perspective on, but I just thought it was so moving. Erica Kirk's speech was like one of the most moving speeches that I've ever heard in my life. Seriously.
We both cried.
Yeah, we both cried. And like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I mean, just hearing her forgive her killer, or, the killer that ruined her family, like separated her family for the rest of her children's life. I mean, to forgive. I mean,
I also feel that her saying that and her forgiving the killer brought a lot of healing. A lot of healing to the masses that were listening to that. I felt that in my heart, and it made me reflect. It made me reflect on my own life. And I was sharing with you yesterday. I was like, wow, that it takes a lot of courage and a lot of love for someone to be able to forgive. And I was telling you that I can't believe I had spent so many years without forgiving kids that were bullying me in high school. And yesterday I was reflecting, and I was like, why wasn't I able to let go and forgive faster? So I love that her speech made me reflect on that and made me realize that there are things that I stopped seeing and I stopped reflecting on, and I realized that I still have that in me. And it was a weight that I just didn't need to carry on. And I feel that, yes, we are definitely on a spiritual battle. And what makes me angry or frustrated is to see, as you were saying, that God is being pushed away from the moment we're born. Babies are being taken away from their mothers, so they take them to daycare, and then in school, God is being pushed away from school, and then in college, God is being pushed away from college, and then there is this society standards for people to go after success and after material things, after career success, and where is God in all of that? So it really is a strong spiritual foundation in God, in your faith, that will be able to build that person to be close to God, and to be the type of person that doesn't celebrate the murder of someone.
Do you see people as celebrating? You see that as it's just a lack of God in their life, and they're capable. They've become capable of that. Why do you think? Because their heart is hardened.
Because their heart is hardened, and there is a lot of propaganda with politics that makes people believe that whatever the other side does is evil and you must disagree with. And if there is something bad that happens to them, we celebrate, we get happy, because they're the enemy. And we forget that we are all human, no matter what vote you put on, no matter what political side you choose to support. We are all human, and we must not celebrate the death of anyone. And that is something that I just can't comprehend. I feel sad to see that there is so much lack of God and faith within people's lives.
It starts from birth. We're born into the world, and we are, within the first couple minutes of life, we're injected with, toxins. We're removed from our mothers. We're programmed to sleep train our babies, for example, and we're sending our kids to school, and then they're being trained by somebody other than parents, right? So, that's a whole other conversation, but, our teachers have been completely bred into this Marxist agenda, and not every teacher, obviously, but a huge percentage of them. And so you're rolling the dice. Let's put it that way. You're rolling the dice by sending your kid to go learn from somebody else, while the mother is then pressured to go work because things have gotten so expensive. So both family members have to work. They have to send their kids to daycare, and it creates. And then we send our kids to public schools, and for 14,000 hours of their developing life, they're spending that with other human beings that you wouldn't necessarily break bread with or hang out with. I mean, that's insanity when you really look at how at this system. So this is my whole education documentary, The Death of Recess, is gonna get into all of this and explore the entire history of how that happened. And I'm super excited to announce our distribution deal soon. But yeah, it's when you see how America was actually really founded on homeschooling, and education was within the family.
Thank goodness I was able to follow my intuition and not get pressured by the system to do things the way they wanted me to do it. Because as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was ready to say, I'm going to do a home birth. And everyone around us, from our family, our friends, and everyone was like, you're crazy. And even though I had a lot of pressure from outsiders, I stayed with my belief that this is a natural process, and I trust that my body is divinely designed to give birth to this baby, and I don't need to go to a hospital. I'm so glad that you supported me on that, and that has started a whole cascade of information and knowledge that I had no idea that we were gonna get into a deep rabbit hole. And from why do people in hospitals cut the cord of the placenta as soon as the baby is born? Why do they inject them with aluminum and unnecessary vaccines and ointments in their eyes? Why do they separate their baby from the mother to go give them their first bath, now knowing that the vernix, which is the what comes out with them on their skin, is there for a reason, to protect them, to protect their skin? I had so many questions. I was like, I'm not going to follow what they're telling me to do. And I'm so grateful that I was able to follow that intuition and do research on my own.
Absolutely.
Then the sleep training, and then you start, as a mother, you start getting a ton of propaganda on formula feeding, to take the baby away from the mother so that others can feed the baby, so that they sell it as this, like, is more practical, is more convenient. But my intuition was telling me, no, she needs to be close to you. You are the mother. God gave you your breasts to feed her and to give her everything she needs. And every night I thank God for my breasts, every night. And then, for being with you, I have learned so much about the education system, and it's just so sad to see that God is being pushed away from the very beginning. So if you don't have that strong foundation, what's happening is that we are being taken away from our nature of being God-like. I was telling you yesterday, we are created at the image of God. And when God is within you, when you honor your soul, you're able to, be connected to yourself, to Jesus. You don't celebrate the murder of someone. You feel sick to your stomach. You feel sad. You feel sorrow. You're able to feel empathy or sympathize with the person that's suffering, and you feel sad. That is our nature as human beings. If you don't feel sad, if you don't feel compassion, then you're lacking God. And why? Because you are being pushed away. I think from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other side, I do see, someone like Putin, for example. Like if I picked up my phone and saw that he died, I don't think I would shed a tear. So I do, have to kind of look at myself, and like part of what I'm sharing, it might be hypocritical a little bit, because if I did find out someone like him died, I'd be like, okay, I think the world might be a better place without him here. Maybe I'm wrong for thinking that, I can kind of, I guess, maybe empathize with how he got to be the way he is. And I will say, I don't wish hell upon anyone. I really pray that even someone as nuts as Putin, I pray that somehow God can forgive him, or, help heal his soul at the very least, to help like purify himself in whatever way that is. So I think, to your point, I think you see like the propaganda that we go through to really demonize each other. And even still at this point, I'm not cheering or rooting for anyone's death. I'm recognizing that, yeah, we're all human, like you said. We have those emotions. And it is sad that people are led to, someone like Charlie is a lot different than someone like Putin in my perspective. Someone like Charlie was, we could disagree with him, but he's simply just trying to create dialogue. Someone like Putin is responsible for murdering like tens and tens of thousands of young innocent people. Difference. So
someone like Putin, I don't think he has a soul. I think he sold his soul to the devil, because this earth is governed by good and evil.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I've seen firsthand what his soldiers did in places like Bucha, and stuff I'm not going to talk about right now. It's horrible. So, yeah, what I come back to is this world is a classroom. Like, and, my Michael, my boss here at GEM, but also I would say one of my best friends and mentors as well, he always shares how you got to think of the Earth School like Harvard. Why does Harvard produce the best graduates and like the most successful people? Because the curriculum is very hard. It's very difficult. And, Oxford, if they want to produce even better graduates than Harvard, what do? They make the curriculum harder to produce a better student or a better graduate. And I see that as this is what Earth is. It's hard. There's no denying that. This is a classroom. And if we want to evolve, if we want to grow, if we want to become stronger on the soul or spiritual level, we have to go through difficult curriculum. And it's about recognizing that's what this is. It's a classroom. It's a place where we learn. It's a place where we grow. And it's a place where we're ultimately given free will to choose how we engage, how we interact with it. So that's why I think some people really grapple with the idea of like, oh, if God is real, then why would he allow all this bad stuff? That's human thinking. We've all felt that. We all think that. But at the end of the day, we cannot perceive or think like God. That's where our faith comes in, is grappling with, well, we're given free will, so this actually isn't God's will that there's all this violence. Like if you look back into like the stories of Genesis or the book of Enoch, like, no, it's actually not God's design. And God's design was perfect. Like there was no killing, there was no death, right? But we fell from that for whatever reason. I don't know. But that's the story, right? It was, we fell from perfection and we're working our way back to that perfection. So that's where I think we are in that spiritual battle, but I ultimately do see us as it's a choice. We have to choose which side are we going to be on. We have to, in this world, in this classroom, we have to choose, are we going to try to shine the light? And it's not about being perfect, right? That's where Jesus comes in.
And it's not the political side.
Correct. No, yeah. This is a spiritual side.
Yeah.
This is light versus dark. This is like
good versus evil.
Good versus evil.
There is good and bad.
Yeah. And I think that's where, some people might struggle to say, oh, well, what, this is just promoting division, right? If we're talking about the spiritual battle. But Jesus came to bring a sword, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at how do we say nothing is good or bad, right? Can you justify violent crimes? Can you justify, someone doing drugs and saying, oh, it's not good or bad, it just is? Mm-hmm. Well, there's consequences, right? And I think that's where we get into a lot of nuance with the conversation that I think, we're going to have all sorts of like guests on this show and like really dive into this, because I love learning from different people and sharing different perspectives. But I look at what you were touching on with like God being removed from schools, right? I think it's a very fascinating conversation with the separation of church and state, for example. We've in the US, we've prioritized religious freedom. So I believe in religious freedom. I believe everyone should have religious freedom. You should have the choice, right? Everybody should have the choice to really do whatever they want. But that doesn't mean that there's no consequences to your choices. Mm-hmm. And that's really what, I don't want anybody to think like, oh, I'm pushing to have, God mandated in schools. That's not how I see it. I see it as there's a consequence for removing God from schools. And then it's up to us as parents and as individuals and as communities to really grapple with that and ask, well, should we keep God in schools, right? I don't believe we should mandate everything for everyone. I think people should be given the free will, but then they should also be real with what are the consequences. Mm-hmm. What are the consequences to removing God from schools, from your life? That's up to the individual. That's up to every single human being in their own personal life. And all my life experiences, I've come to that reality that I need God. Like I need help. I need something greater than myself. Like if it's only myself, it's only my ego, that's a dark, lonely reality. It's really dark. So the only thing that really keeps me going is that faith, is my family, like bringing new life into the world. That's what matters the most to everything.
Yeah. Yeah, if you welcome Jesus in your life, if you choose good in everything you do, in every decision that you make, then you won't have that heavy karma following you around. And you will, yes, it doesn't mean that you will not suffer. It doesn't mean that you will not go through challenges. But when you have God in your life, you feel God's presence. You feel that there is a divine purpose for you, for your life. You're not giving your life and attention to the earthly pleasures that ultimately make you more vulnerable for the devil to take you and to use your life for bad. Like Putin, I'm sure he's being taken from the devil, and he's doing a lot of bad things because he is basically the devil himself. So I feel that when you have God with you, you're not going to be the person that makes the decision to go kill someone. You're not going to make the decision to go get drunk and drive drunk and put the lives at risk because of your dumb decision. If you have God within you, you're not going to make that decision. So it's very important. It's very important to keep that God within us and to know that yes, you said it, is free will. We all have free will, but you get to choose good or bad.
Yeah, at the Charlie Kirk ceremony, before Trump came on, they had Lee Greenwald singing "God Bless the USA," and it hit me. I was like, "Wow, we used to sing that in schools when I was a kid. We sang that in schools. We said the Pledge of Allegiance. We would sing the national anthem. I mean, there was so much more God and country." And, I guess more of a patriotic spirit that was in our school as young kids. And I'm not advocating for, because I think you can make that argument, there is some political indoctrination that could be pushed, into that and can be captured. But I do see that's having a strong identity with your faith, having a strong national identity. And that doesn't mean just blind obedience to authority, right? But that means being actually proud to be where you're from and to have a part of your identity be that. I think that's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's a very good thing. And I think that there is this movement, which this will probably be another episode, but there is, a Marxist movement that, and this has happened in societies for, hundreds of years, but there is a Marxist movement happening in the United States right now at a scale that I think most people would be pretty shocked to really understand, to see how many millions of teachers have been captured by Marxist ideologies, and to see how many foreign nations are investing millions, if not billions of dollars into promoting Marxism because they know that it destabilizes the country. And so that's one thing. I think when you become aware of what the battle is, you become aware of what the stakes are. The stakes is that everything that we've built here in the Western civilization is being threatened right now. And there's a lot of people that are being brainwashed into being victims, into thinking that the West is so oppressive. The West isn't perfect, right? But when if you are actually worldly, like someone like myself, and you've traveled to other countries as well, once you actually start to look at how the world operates, you start to see Russia, you start to see China, you start to be I've been in Syria, I've been in Gaza, I've been, all over the place. I've seen every different type of nation, Christian nation, Muslim nation, right? I've seen all sorts of different people. Been in Ethiopia, on the border of Sudan, seeing the civil war happening in Sudan, seeing the refugees fleeing. You see how all of these cultures, how all of these things interact. You start to think about the West a lot differently. You start to recognize that, yeah, we have it a lot better.
We have it good.
We have it a lot better. But yet, kids that are going through the current system right now are brainwashed to think that we are oppressed in this system. Are there imperfections? Are there injustices? Yes. Should we address them? Yes. Should we talk about them? Yes. But we should never lose sight of the bigger picture of what we are building here. And I fear that that's something that we're seeing play out in front of us right now, is that there are foreign interests heavily pushing this ideology that the West is oppressive, that the West is needs to be dismantled, right? Capitalism, all of it needs to be thrown out. That is Marxism. That is what Marxism is. So whether or not you're privy to Marxist ideology, you might be fulfilling the Marxist prophecy without you even knowing it. And I think that that's what a lot of young people are doing. They're fulfilling the Marxist agenda without even knowing it. And to me, full circle, that's what Charlie was at the heart of. That is what Charlie was disrupting. He was going into the universities. He was going into Mordor. He was in it. He was like behind the black gate, talking to all of the source of where the Marxist ideology is being bred. And that's why he was a threat. So to Marxists, just words, right? Just sharing the truth is a threat. And they will use violence to silence it. So I think what we saw with Charlie, I hope people realize it's much deeper. It is much deeper. He was attacking the core of what is ruining the United States, what is ruining the West. And it's a slow death. And I do think that Charlie ultimately, his legacy is going to live on even brighter now. I had the privilege of going to one of his Turning Point events in Colorado, at Colorado State in 2019. And I mean, it was crazy. There was Antifa everywhere. They were swearing, cussing at each other, protesting. They were just protesting the fact that Charlie was on campus. So, I mean, it was a threat that he was even there. And if I know I might sound extreme by saying this, but the Marxist ideology is of Satan.
Yeah.
It is the Satanist ideology, because if you peel it back at its core, Marxism does not believe in anything beyond the materialist, the human materialist perspective. They don't believe that humans are divine. They don't believe that humans have divinity, and this is kind of what I was getting at in the beginning, is that there is life beyond this human flesh. It's beyond our work. It's beyond the material world. Marxism is the opposite of what the Christian ideology is, right? Jesus says, like, be in this world, but not of it, right? He tells us he's not of this world. So that's his kind of promise to us, like, believe in me and you will have eternal life. You will have life beyond this existence, right? That's our choice. So I would encourage everyone to really do your own research, look at the scriptures, and really get in touch with your heart and get in touch with your soul and really ask yourself, what side of this do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the nihilistic, egotistic, materialist side of this? Or do you want to be on the side of there's life beyond this? There's something beyond this that's greater than anything that we can comprehend or imagine. And so I think that that's really what we're experiencing right now in America. We're experiencing a revival. We're experiencing an awakening to what it really means to be alive, to be a human being on this planet, in this country, wherever you're at, actually. I think people all over the world are looking at the Charlie Kirk situation. They're looking at the United States and saying, what the heck is going on over there? What are they going to do? They're watching us. I know that for a fact. When I travel to other countries, they are watching the United States. What are you going to do? Because we are the leaders of the free world. We are. Every nation in the world. That doesn't mean we're the best, right, at everything. But when it comes to personal freedoms, we are. We are the best at that. I believe that.
Yeah.
And we're the most diverse country on the planet. We have the most diverse amount of challenges, the most diverse amount of opportunities. So I would just encourage everyone to really just take a step back and look at how good we have it and just take part in this. Like, find your passion, find your gifts, and find your creativity and get involved in the world. Create something, like build something that is going to glorify God in your own unique individual way. Because God created us all with our individuality and our uniqueness. So I think that's how we really, if we want to get involved in the spiritual battle and be on the right side, if from my perspective, that really is like dialing in your gifts and exploring. If you don't know what your gifts are, go start trying things.
Yeah.
Right? Like put down the phone, put down the video games, put down the alcohol, put down the weed, like get involved with life and just see what ignites you, see what wakes you up, and put away all the things that are dulling your spirit. Like you have to purify yourself to be able to find your true calling and your true gifts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to have God in your life. And we as parents have a big responsibility with these new generations. It's our job. It's not the school's job. It's not the daycare's job. It's parents. You are setting the foundation of your children and of the next generation's faith and beliefs. And we know what's happening right now. If you feel that there needs to be a change, that's where you start. That's where you have control of your children. I always like to share an interview that they did to the biggest pedophile in Colombia, Garavito. They interviewed him and they asked him, so how did you choose what kids to, kidnap? And he said, I will only take the kids that I will see were more vulnerable and their parents weren't as present in their lives. If I saw a kid that had a present dad and a present mom that cared for that kid, I will not touch that kid. I will not even think about trying to get to that kid. I will only get to the vulnerable that wasn't with their parents. So that goes beyond a pedophile that is choosing kids. It's if you have God with you, you're protected.
Mm-hmm. It's your spiritual armor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't have that armor on, you're vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You're weak.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's deep. I love that.
In my life and in your life too,
Absolutely.
I have a strong foundation. Thank God my parents raised me well, and they always encouraged me to go to church, to read the Bible, to pray. And even though I had a moment within my teenage years that I went away, I came back. And I've always had a relationship with God, with Jesus, with Mother Mary. Mm-hmm. And I have had times in my life where my life was on the edge. Like I could be, on the other side many times. But for miracles, I was always protected. And I'm here now, and I have a daughter, and I have a family. Mm-hmm. And I believe that I do have two big angels, ancestors, God, Jesus, Mother Mary behind me, protecting me. And that goes for everyone that welcomes God and Jesus in their lives.
Exercise discernment in this time. Exercise caution. And from my experiences, even things like psychedelics, it weakens your spiritual armor. It might give you a temporary high or a temporary feeling of enlightenment, but there's a cost. Mm-hmm. And we don't really talk about that in this kind of new age spiritual and psychedelic revolution that's taking place. We like to think it's all good, it's all love and light, but we fail to recognize that there's a shadow to it as well. And from my perspective, like what you've shared, I felt the same way. I felt like I've always had these guardian angels, and I've also recognized that I have drifted from that. I have brought things in that have weakened my spiritual armor, and I have faced consequences for that. Whether it's, somebody enters your life and they're ultimately not good for you, or...
But it's tentative.
Yeah.
Looks
exactly.
Good, feels good.
Yeah, it feels good, it looks good, it has this appearance of being good, but in reality, it's harming your soul, it's harming your potential. So, yeah, that's why I just want to share raw, vulnerable honesty, stories of where I went wrong, and never, ever try to appear as I've got it all figured out and I'm perfect. We're just trying to share that, I see God working through my life, through your life, as we're parents, and then also seeing like just the blessings of being able to go out in the world and serve and help people, like having like an aligned career and not being in this endless chase for wealth and money and status, but actually having like purpose. And I think having a family is like the greatest purpose. And I think that's why there's such an attack on that. Like if you really look at society, it's like you see just the attack on the family values, right? You see this huge push for polyamory. You see this massive push for abortion. All these are nuanced topics.
We should get into that in another episode.
Let us know in the comments. What do you guys want to hear us talk about? Because we'll dive into all of it. But yeah, you see there's an assault on family. There's assault on family values. People want to make it cool to pursue multiple partners or to, seek endless pleasure, but
put on hold raising a family, having a family.
Yeah, exactly. And all that stuff's easy, it's fun, it's amazing. But then there's the flip side of it. It's so much better when you have a family and you're sober and you're locked in and you're pursuing that. And I see, sadly, there are so many people leading so many millions of people astray right now. I came from that world living in Hollywood. I came from the new Hollywood, which is social media, right? I was in the beginning of that with a lot of different influencers, like helping build the beginning of the social media influencers that you see today. And I see, it's tragic. I see how many of them are leading people astray spiritually. For the quick hit, for the dopamine, right? For it's like pleasure, it's fun, it's great. I love watching all these videos, but there's no spiritual substance.
Yeah.
And I pray and I hope that more and more people continue to move in the direction of using their gifts, using their voice, using what they've been given, by God to glorify God and to shine more light into the world, because we really need that right now.
We do. I think that just open yourself to your connection to God by just saying a small prayer at night before you go to bed. And welcome Jesus in your life, and know that the answers will start to come to you, not from the outside, not from the political parties, not from the guru, not from the yoga instructor. They start to come from within. And that is Jesus talking to you.
Yeah, amen. It's a spiritual battle out here.
Are you ready?
Got to be equipped. Heck yeah. Nothing's going to faze me right now.
I love that we're ready.
Yeah, it's a spiritual battle out here, folks. So stay protected. Stay aligned. All right, y'all. Have a beautiful day. God bless. Stay equipped. We're in a spiritual warfare. So stay strong out there.
Bye, everyone. God bless.